In the autumn of 2013, deep within the ancient lands of China, archaeologists unearthed something that defied their understanding of history. It was an irrigation system, vast and complex, a testament to sophisticated engineering. Its origins stretched back at least 2,000 years, a whisper from a bygone era. This colossal network wasn't just a simple ditch. It interconnected 53 distinct settlements, an astonishing number for the ancient world, suggesting a level of societal organization and population density previously thought impossible for that period. The sheer scale was mind-boggling, a silent challenge to every established timeline. But as the dust settled and the initial awe began to fade, a far more unsettling truth emerged. The most astonishing aspect of this elaborate system wasn't its age, nor its size, nor its intricate design. It was the chilling, undeniable fact that scientists, even today, have no definitive idea who built it. No known civilization from that era possessed the documented capacity for such a feat. This discovery didn't just add a new chapter to history. It tore out the existing pages, undermining the traditional academic view of a linear, predictable cultural evolution in ancient China. It revealed that, at that precise moment in time, this territory harbored at least one, perhaps more, highly developed societies whose existence had been utterly erased from the historical record, leaving behind only these silent, monumental structures. And this unsettling revelation is far from an isolated incident. Beyond the familiar names etched into our collective consciousness, the Sumerians, the ancient Egyptians, countless millennia ago, our planet was home to other, far more enigmatic civilizations. They rose and fell, leaving behind whispers and colossal shadows, their stories obscured by the relentless march of time, their secrets still buried beneath layers of earth and disbelief. Consider a civilization so advanced, so monumental, that it makes the great Aztecs and Incas of South America a urban planning several millennia before others even conceived of settled agriculture. What terrifying secrets of these forgotten civilizations are scientists, even now, on the verge of unearthing? Most ancient civilizations, as we understand them, began their active development around the second millennium before our common era. That was the pivotal moment when humanity cautiously transitioned from a nomadic existence, bound by the whims of nature, to the more stable, yet equally demanding practices of agriculture and animal husbandry. This shift was the bedrock upon which all subsequent complex societies were built. But the question persists, a cold tremor in the historical narrative. How did some ancient societies achieve such a staggering leap in development, accelerating past their contemporaries, as if guided by an unseen hand? The answer, or at least a fragment of it, began to emerge in 1997. A determined Peruvian researcher, Dr. Ruth Shady, commenced excavations along the arid, windswept northwestern coast of Peru. Her initial objective was straightforward: to locate yet another monument of the storied Inca Empire. The Incas, after all, were known for their architectural prowess, their mastery of stone. But what Dr. Shady stumbled upon was something far more profound, far more ancient than she could have ever imagined. She unearthed ruins that predated the oldest known Inca structures by at least 4,000 years, dating back to the third millennium before our common era. It was a discovery that shattered established timelines, revealing a civilization that had flourished in the shadows of prehistory. This, however, was merely the prologue. The very fabric of the Norte Chico civilization structures, the sheer audacity of their engineering, bore no resemblance to any other archaeological finds in the region, or indeed in much of the world. Caral, the largest city of this enigmatic ancient society, stands as a silent monument to their forgotten grandeur. Scientists continue their painstaking work there, each shovel full of earth revealing more layers of a lost world. Already, they have uncovered sprawling plazas, a massive amphitheater, countless residential dwellings, and an intricate irrigation system, all hallmarks of a highly organized, sophisticated urban society. But the true engineering marvel, the heart of this astonishing ancient city, lies in its monumental pyramids. Not one or two, but several colossal structures, rising far as may be older than the world-renowned monumental complexes of Egypt. Imagine that, a civilization in the Americas, building structures that rival, and perhaps even precede, the iconic pyramids of Giza, at a time when most other inhabitants of South America were only just beginning to experiment with the most rudimentary forms of agriculture. How did the people of Norte Chico achieve such an extraordinary level of development, such architectural sophistication, when their contemporaries were still struggling with the very fundamentals of settled existence? The answer perhaps lies in a seemingly simple artifact found throughout the ancient city, the so-called shikras. These were humble bags, woven from reeds, meticulously filled with stones. Experts hypothesize that it was with these unassuming tools that the ancient Carolinos managed to construct their monumental structures. The theory suggests they would stack these weighted bags, layer upon painstaking layer, forming sturdy, temporary ramps. This ingenious method would have drastically simplified the arduous task of moving and positioning massive stone blocks, allowing them to raise their pyramids with a precision that still baffles modern engineers. It is a testament to their resourcefulness, a whisper of a forgotten ingenuity. Yet some researchers, despite the compelling evidence, remain unconvinced, their skepticism a cold reminder of the vast unknowns that still shroud these ancient architects. What else did they know? Imagine a civilization, ancient beyond our easy comprehension, rising from the primal dust of what we now call Peru, a society of immense ambition, capable of monumental construction, yet utterly devoid of two cornerstones we associate with any developed culture: pottery and written language. No shards of clay, no hieroglyphs etched into stone, no papyrus scrolls hinting at their stories, their laws, their very thoughts. Nothing but the silent colossal stones themselves. For decades, this was the bewildering enigma of Norte Chico, a pre-Columbian civilization, its heart beating strongest in the sacred city of Caral. Archaeologists, their tools scraping against the hardened earth, found no trace, not a single fragment of the ceramics that typically mark the progress of human societies. No cuneiform, no pictograms, no phonetic symbols to decipher. It was as if an entire epoch of human ingenuity, the very impulse to record and to craft, had simply vanished, or perhaps never existed. Dr. Ruth Shady, the tireless archaeologist who brought Caral to the world's attention, wrestled with this profound absence. To her, only two explanations could possibly account for such a glaring void. The first, a notion that whispers of an almost impossible beginning, that Caral, along with the other ancient cities of the Supi Valley, was constructed during a pre-ceramic age, a time before the simple act of shaping clay and firing it into a vessel had been mastered. But this theory, while startling, immediately crashes against the ironclad wall of historical precedent. We know of no other instance, anywhere on this planet, where a society first erected immense pyramids, then, only later, learned the basic skill of crafting rudimentary pots, Consider the ancient Egyptians, who painstakingly developed their intricate societal structures, their writing systems, their complex religious beliefs across centuries before they even conceived of the monumental structures at Giza. Their pyramids were the culmination of a long, slow climb, not the audacious first step. The second explanation offered by Shady is perhaps even more unsettling. It posits that the people of Norte Chico left behind no primitive artifacts simply because, by the time Corral reached its zenith, they were already too advanced for mere pots, too sophisticated for the crude scratchings we call writing. A chilling thought, isn't it? If this were true, it would mean the Norte Chico civilization was not merely ahead of its time, not simply an isolated anomaly. It would imply a leap, a developmental trajectory that bypassed fundamental stages, a society that was, in some profound and disturbing way, more progressive than even our own, more advanced than the very minds now attempting to comprehend its secrets. Could the pyramids of Corral have been built by ancient humans, or by something else entirely? The question hangs heavy in the air, a cold breath on the back of buried too much, eroded too many clues. It existed too long ago, its secrets too deeply interred for any significant evidence to have survived the relentless march of millennia. Yet to glimpse a fragment of understanding, to touch the edges of such a distant memory, we might turn our gaze to another ancient society, one that nearly succumbed to the same oblivion, the Kingdom of Kush, or the Nubian Empire, a state that emerged around the 11th century before our Common Era, rising from the sun-baked lands of what is now Sudan. This was a realm that could have easily been swallowed by the vastness of history, its achievements fading into the desert winds, had it not, at a pivotal moment, asserted its formidable power. The Kushites, in their ascendancy, conquered Upper Egypt, seizing control of its rich lands and its ancient traditions. In doing so, they absorbed a profound and complex technology, the art of building colossal stone pyramids. They did not merely observe, they learned, they adapted, and then they made it their own. The Nubian pyramids, while often more slender and generally smaller than their Egyptian counterparts, possessed a unique, almost defiant elegance. And crucially, the inhabitants of Kush managed to erect an astonishing number of these monuments. Where Egypt boasts dozens, the Kushites built hundreds, a staggering total of around 300 such structures. So the next time the urge to stand in the shadow of a pyramid calls to you, consider diverting your journey not to Egypt, but to Sudan. There, amidst the golden dunes, you will discover the most magnificent of these complexes, the monumental necropolis of Meroe, a place shrouded in intrigue, its very foundations steeped in rebellion and a dark legend. According to the ancient Greek historian Diodorus Siculus, a chilling decree once descended upon the Nubian ruler, Archaeologists II. The Egyptian priests, asserting their divine authority, commanded the king to take his own life. They claimed the stars themselves had foretold this grim destiny, that it was his fate, his sacred duty. But Archaeologists, a man of iron will and defiant spirit, refused to bow to such a morbid pronouncement. Instead, in a move that echoed through the annals of power, he ordered the summary execution of the very priests who had dared to issue such a death sentence, relocated the capital of the Kushite kingdom, deliberately moving it far from the suffocating influence of Egypt. Thus, the city of Meroe was born, a testament to a king's defiance, a new center of power forged in the crucible of rebellion. Yet some scholars still harbor a quiet skepticism regarding this dramatic legend. Despite the Nubian pyramids being smaller than their Egyptian predecessors, The sheer scale of building so many, so rapidly, in an age without modern machinery, remains a feat that borders on the impossible. Perhaps the truth is even stranger than the legends we tell ourselves. We tell ourselves a story about the dawn of civilization, a comforting narrative of slow, painstaking progress. From the rough-hewn stone to the first flicker of bronze, then the eventual, inevitable mastery of iron. We imagine our distant ancestors fumbling in the dark, their minds just beginning to grasp the rudiments of technology, their societies simple, their understanding of the world rudimentary. But what if that story, that carefully constructed timeline, is a fabrication? What if, buried beneath layers of dust and dogma, lies evidence of a different path? A path where ancient hands wielded knowledge we still struggle to comprehend, where forgotten cultures achieved feats that defy our most fundamental assumptions about the past. The mid-20th century saw a feverish scramble across the vast, sun-baked landscapes of West Africa. Nigeria, along with its neighboring nations, became a magnet for fortune seekers, a crucible for ambition. The earth beneath their feet, they believed, held untold riches, precious metals, glittering gemstones, the raw materials for modern industry. Thousands of European and American entrepreneurs descended upon the land, each driven by the singular, unyielding hunger for profit. They carved out claims, established their mines, and wrestled with the unforgiving terrain. Many found success, a comfortable living, but one man, an English businessman whose name is now largely swallowed by the sands of time, stumbled upon something far more profound than mere gold. Deep within a weathered cave on the Jos Plateau, he unearthed not just a valuable vein of ore, but something else entirely. Hundreds of artifacts, silent witnesses to a civilization previously unknown, lay waiting in the cool, damp earth. The initial confusion soon gave way to a chilling realization. These were not the simple implements of a primitive people. These objects, later attributed to what we now call the Nok culture, spoke of a mastery that shattered established timelines. For these ancient people, it turned out, had learned to smelt iron. They had perfected this complex, transformative process, a staggering 3,500 years before their European counterparts. Imagine that gap, a chasm of knowledge, of innovation, stretching back into the deepest shadows of history. Among the most striking of these finds was an iron head, sculpted to the natural size of a human. Its features, though stylized, held an unsettling realism, a silent, watchful intensity that seemed to penetrate the very soul. Such artistry, such command over a difficult medium, is breathtaking even today. For the archaeologists and historians of the mid-20th century, it was a revelation, a seismic shift in their understanding. The very technology of its production confirmed an almost impossible truth. The Nok culture was the first society in the world to leap directly from the Stone Age to the Iron Age, bypassing the Bronze Age entirely. No slow, incremental steps, no gradual evolution, just a sudden, inexplicable surge forward. And the paradoxes only deepened. Typically, ancient societies guarded their iron with a fierce pragmatism. This precious metal, so difficult to extract and forge, was reserved for the essential, for weapons to defend, for tools to build, for implements to cultivate. Iron was life, survival. Yet the people of Nok, with their astonishing metallurgical prowess, chose to dedicate this rarest of resources to art. They poured their hard-won iron into decorative sculptures, intricate and expressive, demonstrating a reverence for aesthetic beauty that transcended mere utility. What kind of civilization, so early in humanity's journey, placed such a high value on artistic expression that they would sacrifice a vital commodity for it. It suggests a mindset, a cultural framework, utterly alien to our assumptions about early human development. But the secrets of the Nok culture did not end with their iron. Their terracotta creations were, in their own way, even more refined, more indicative of an advanced understanding. The ancient Nok artisans knew something fundamental about the physics of their craft. They understood that during the intense firing of clay figures, the gases and water vapor trapped within would expand, inevitably leading to cracks, warping, and catastrophic defects. This was a problem that plagued countless early potters, yet the Nok masters had found a solution, a subtle act of brilliance hidden in plain sight. They deliberately crafted ventilation holes within their figures, not as crude punctures, but with a nuanced, almost surgical precision. These openings were strategically placed in the eyes, the mouth, the nostrils, the ears. The genius of it was twofold. These vents allowed the trapped gases to escape, preventing structural damage, while simultaneously enhancing the realism of the sculptures. The vacant stare of the eyes, the hollow breath of the mouth, the subtle depressions of the nose and ears, all became integral parts of the artistic expression, lament to an intelligence that extended far beyond simple craftsmanship. Perhaps the most unsettling discovery about the Nok sculptures, especially the life-sized figures, was not what they were, but where they were found. Archaeologists did not unearth the majority of these masterpieces within the bustling settlements of the Nok people. Instead, they were found buried, often meticulously concealed in remote, isolated clearings, in hidden places between different communities. Some researchers posit these were sites of religious pilgrimage, places of deep spiritual significance. But a colder, more disturbing possibility lingers in the quiet air of these forgotten burial grounds. What if the Nok were not alone? What if, during that distant epoch, another presence walked alongside them? A guiding hand, a silent teacher. What if it was this unknown entity, this shadow civilization, that imparted to the ancient Africans such astonishingly progressive technologies? The Nok culture, with its sudden leap into the Iron Age and its sophisticated artistry, was not an isolated anomaly. There were other whispers, other echoes from the deep past that challenged the established order. The early artifacts of the Dongson civilization, for instance, in Southeast Asia, raised even more profound questions, questions that continue to haunt scholars to this day. In the mid-20th century, European archaeologists, driven by the same blend of academic curiosity and colonial ambition, began to meticulously excavate a particular Dongson site, a place that had long been half forgotten, half revered. Beneath what appeared to be relatively recent burials, they discovered remains dating back at least 2,500 years. The sheer antiquity of the find was significant, certainly. But the most astonishing characteristic of that ancient grave, the detail that sent a shiver down the spines of hardened scientists, was not its age. The skeletal remains lay not merely in a canoe, but almost part of it, as if the vessel itself had become a tomb, a final resting place for something truly monumental. This was no ordinary burial, no simple journey to the afterlife. The craft, ancient beyond reckoning, spoke of a past shrouded in shadow, a time when the very bones of the deceased were not just interred, but perhaps revered in a way that chills the modern mind. Ancient peoples, it is said, would sit upon these very remains, not in disrespect, but as if claiming a macabre throne, a seed of power carved from the echoes of a forgotten colossal lineage. What kind of beings would inspire such a ritual? What forgotten giants once commanded such eerie reverence? Further analysis of the vessel itself only deepened the mystery. This was no ceremonial showpiece, no mere effigy. The boat was designed to sail, to cut through the water, capable of traversing vast distances. This wasn't just a burial. It was a testament to journeys, to a life lived on an impossible scale. Who were the pilots of such a craft? What shores did they seek? What horizons did they conquer? The very existence of a seaworthy vessel of such proportions hinted at a civilization, perhaps a lost people, who understood the world in ways we can only begin to fathom. A forgotten culture, perhaps the enigmatic Donkson, embraced a specific, chilling form of sustenance or ritualistic practice, long before such primal acts became mere whispers in humanity's shadowed history. The secrets of these burials, however, did not end with the colossal canoe. As specialists carefully sifted through the earth, past crude axes and other funerary offerings, they unearthed something far more unsettling, something that resonated with a silent, terrifying power. They found colossal bronze drums. These were not mere instruments. They were monumental works of art, completely covered in intricate filigree engravings, swirling patterns that seemed to writhe with a life of their own, intertwined with dark, mystical symbols. Symbols that whispered of forgotten gods, of ancient pacts, of powers best left undisturbed. The largest of these, an artifact now known as the Petchen Fmulon drum, measured a staggering 1 meter and 36 centimeters in diameter, reaching a height of almost 2 meters. Imagine it, a gleaming, resonant, bronze leviathan, standing almost twice the height of a grown man. The sheer scale begged a question that echoed through the archaeological dig sites. How could ancient humans, with their comparatively diminutive stature, have possibly played these instruments? Were they struck with colossal mallets, wielded by hands far larger than our own? The very thought conjured images of dark rituals, of thunderous beats, shaking the very ground, summoning something from the depths of primeval fear. Some scholars, in an attempt to rationalize the impossible, suggested these gigantic drums were used to terrify wild animals, their booming resonance echoing through dense forests, driving beasts before them. But the intricate, delicate engravings, the sheer artistry of their construction, spoke of something far more profound than a simple scare tactic. They hinted at purpose, at ceremony, at a profound connection to the unseen world. And then, the chilling realization, perhaps these drums were never intended for human hands at all. Perhaps they were designed for other beings, entities whose immense size perfectly matched the scale of these enigmatic artifacts. If so, what kind of beings were they? And what kind of music did they play? What secrets did their rhythmic thunder unlock? The very idea that such beings might have existed, might have walked among our ancestors, begins to explain other inexplicable anomalies. On the walls of one of the pyramids of the ancient Kush-Meroe civilization, there exists a depiction that defies all logic. It shows a mighty man, a figure of immense stature, effortlessly perched atop a towering structure, a colossal edifice that would dwarf any normal human. And yet, in other murals within the same complex, human figures are depicted at their usual familiar size. The ancient artists, it seems, were not depicting a god or a king in symbolic grandeur, but a true giant, a being of flesh and blood, whose presence was so undeniable, so awe-inspiring, that it had to be rendered exactly as it was. This is far from an isolated incident. The echoes of giants reverberate through the myths and legends of countless ancient civilizations. In the heart of Central Africa, certain tribes believe their entire lineage sprang from the mighty Bombo, a colossal figure they still revere as a primordial god, the very source of their existence. Across the vast expanse of ancient China, the creation of the world itself is attributed to the giant Pangu, who, with a single monumental effort, split the impenetrable primordial chaos, separating heaven from earth, shaping the very fabric of existence with his titanic strength. And in the sun-drenched lands of ancient Greece, the tales of the Titans, those primordial monstrous forces that preceded the Olympian gods, are woven deep into the cultural tapestry, a constant reminder of a time when the world was ruled by beings of unimaginable power and scale. But it is in the myths of North and Central America where the legends of giants take on an even more unsettling dimension. Here, the stories do not merely speak of giants. They explicitly state that these colossal beings once lived alongside humans, sharing the same earth, breathing the same air. And the most recent scientific discoveries, the most recent whispers from the earth itself, are beginning to suggest that such an incredible, almost unbelievable theory might just be true. In the 16th century, a Spanish monk named Andrés de Olmas, a meticulous researcher of Aztec culture, recounted in one of his comprehensive works a chilling local legend. He wrote of enigmatic beings, the Quinametsin, who, according to ancient lore, once inhabited the very territories he was exploring. This was the Nahuatl word, the language of the Aztecs, used to describe people of immense stature, towering individuals whose presence commanded both fear and awe. Olmas, a man of faith and reason, became convinced that these very giants, these legendary Quinametsin, were the true architects of the dark, colossal monuments and the sprawling, enigmatic pyramids of Teotihuacan. How else, he reasoned, could such monumental structures, built with such precision and on such an impossible scale, have been constructed by mere humans? The complexity and sheer magnitude of these ancient cities, he believed, could only be explained by the hands of giants. And as if to confirm his unsettling hypothesis, subsequent archaeological findings in the region only added a terrifying weight to his assumptions. Then, in the year 1774, a farmer in the quiet hills of Virginia, in what would become the United States, was engaged in the mundane task of digging a ditch. The earth, disturbed by his shovel, suddenly yielded something unexpected. A cluster of bones, bleached and ancient, protruded from the soil. The farmer, initially dismissing it as the skeleton of a cow, continued to dig. But as more of the remains were uncovered, a cold dread began to creep over him. He realized with a sickening certainty that what he had unearthed was not an animal at all. It belonged to his skeletal frame, when finally unearthed, stretched to an astonishing 2.5 meters, a silent testament to a grandeur almost beyond human comprehension. Nude to scour the unforgiving terrain, they uncovered, piece by agonizing piece, evidence of at least 60 similar colossal remains, each one a stark, silent echo of a forgotten dominion. One particular burial, however, spoke volumes beyond mere bone and dust. Here, cradling the massive hands, adorning the elongated neck, rested exquisite gold ornaments, intricate and undeniably crafted with a reverence bordering on devotion. Yet, among the smaller, more familiar burials nearby, archaeologists found nothing of the sort. No precious metals, no elaborate adornments. This stark contrast painted a chilling picture. Ancient peoples revered these giants, even sought to appease them with gifts of immense value. But why? What compelled such profound veneration? Was it simply their imposing stature, their sheer physical dominance? Or was there something deeper, something far more unsettling? Could it be that these towering beings truly imparted lost technologies, forbidden knowledge to the nascent civilizations of our world? And if so, why do we know so little of these enigmatic teachers? Why have their lessons been erased from our collective memory? Perhaps some clandestine force actively seeks to bury this truth, to shield us from a history too vast, too terrifying to comprehend. For centuries, scholars debated the very existence of another legendary giant, Gilgamesh, the formidable hero of the Sumerian epic. The narrative, rich with gods and monsters, with quests for immortality and confrontations with primal forces, seemed too grand, too fantastical for mere mortal truth. Most dismissed it as pure myth, a magnificent but ultimately fictional tapestry woven by ancient storytellers. Then, in the early 2003, the sands of time shifted. A dedicated team of Danish archaeologists toiling under the relentless Iraqi sun stumbled upon a burial site deep within the desolate desert. What they unearthed defied all conventional understanding. The skeletal remains of a giant, its proportions and the intricate details of its resting place, eerily mirroring the descriptions of King Gilgamesh himself. The scientific community, momentarily stunned into a hushed reverence, hailed it as one of the most monumental discoveries of the modern age. The implications were staggering, promising to rewrite the very foundations of human history. Yet, a deeper exploration of this monumental tomb was not to be. Barely 2 weeks later, the United States military stormed across the Iraqi border, unleashing a torrent of chaos and conflict. All archaeological endeavors, all scientific research, ground to an immediate, terrifying halt. To this day, historians grapple with an agonizing question. Why did the United States feel such an urgent, inexplicable need to initiate hostilities so abruptly? Official pronouncements cited the imperative to respond to the horrors of 9/11, a necessary measure in a world irrevocably altered. But Iraq, as countless reports would later confirm, bore no direct involvement in those horrific attacks. Was there another motive, a more sinister agenda at play for the American authorities? Was it merely a grotesque coincidence that the invasion commenced almost precisely after the Gilgamesh tomb, a revelation promising to shatter our understanding of ancient history, had been unearthed? After America's decisive intervention, the burial site was never again subjected to rigorous scientific scrutiny. The unearthed materials, the tantalizing evidence, were summarily classified, vanishing into the impenetrable shadows of national security. Even in 2019, when activists filed Freedom of Information Act requests with the State Department, seeking access to the documents pertaining to this extraordinary case, their pleas met a wall of silence. Access to these materials remained stubbornly denied, even as nearly every other request from that tumultuous period has been granted. Could it be that giants truly once walked this earth, not as myth, but as rulers? And is this why governments across the globe conspire to suppress this profound, terrifying secret? If so, if these behemoths indeed roamed our world, then the most unsettling question remains: from where exactly did they come? Giants. It is tempting to dismiss the notion that such beings could simply materialize from thin air or descend upon us from the heavens. And yet, they might have. Even within the hallowed pages of the Christian canon, the book of Genesis whispers a chilling tale. After the creation of the world, it states, earthly women began to entwine themselves with the sons of God, beings who descended from the celestial spheres. From these unholy unions, a new race was born upon the earth: the Nephilim, the giants. The ancient world, shrouded in the mists of forgotten time, holds secrets that defy our understanding. Among them, a text, often dismissed as apocryphal, yet its pages scream with an unsettling clarity. We speak of the Book of Enoch, a manuscript believed to have been penned in the 3rd millennium before the Common Era. Its author, a man named Enoch, claimed an impossible feat: direct communion with the divine, a face-to-face encounter with the Lord and his enigmatic assistants. On the surf editions speak of a profound, almost tangible connection to the divine during moments of deep prayer, a sense of holy presence. But certain scholars, peering into the shadows of history, suggest a chilling alternative. What if Enoch's encounter was not a mere spiritual metaphor, but a stark, terrifying reality? What if he truly stood before beings from another realm? One particular chapter of Enoch's writings, ominously titled "The Book of the Heavenly Luminaries," delves into an incredibly detailed account of the movements of celestial bodies, a cosmic ballet of stars and planets. How could a man, living 3,000 years before the Common Era, possess such intricate knowledge of the heavens? His world was one of flickering campfires and the slow turning of the seasons, not telescopes or orbital mechanics. The prevailing explanation for this impossible wisdom whispers of something far more unsettling. Perhaps the Lord and his assistants were not ethereal spirits, but genuine extraterrestrial visitors, beings capable of traversing the vast, silent chasms of space, and who, on one unforgettable occasion, took Enoch aboard their vessel. These were the biblical sons of God, entities who descended from the heavens, not in a blaze of glory, but with an agenda unknown, an ancient alien presence that mingled with humanity, and, so the legends claim, begat a race of giants, monstrous, towering figures whose very existence defied the natural order. It is tempting, of course, to dismiss this as nothing more than convoluted religious allegory, a poetic attempt to grasp the unfathomable. Yet the echoes of this narrative resonate through other ancient cultures, lending an unnerving weight to Enoch's words. Consider the Vincha culture, a society that blossomed between the 6th and 5th millennia before the Common Era. Across the lands we now call Serbia, Croatia, Romania, and Bulgaria, the abrupt, almost instantaneous ascent of this Neolithic society remains an enduring enigma, a puzzle that continues to haunt archaeologists. While their neighbors still hunted and gathered, scraping a meager existence from the earth, the Vincha people experienced an inexplicable surge of development. From the depths of their excavation sites, archaeologists have unearthed a recurring series of symbols, arranged in patterns strikingly similar to our modern alphabets. If these markings truly represent a written language, then the Vincha culture would rewrite history, claiming the title of the world's oldest literate society. How could a seemingly primitive community achieve such an astonishing leap forward 7,000 years ago, while the surrounding tribes were still honing their flint tools and tracking game? The answer, it seems, lies buried within an even more astonishing discovery from the Vincha culture: their enigmatic ceramic figurines. These small, unsettling statues possess distinctly triangular heads, large, unblinking eyes that seem to gaze into the distant future, and an otherworldly, almost alien quality. They do not merely hint at the strange, they scream it. Is it merely an artistic interpretation of the human form, a stylized representation born of ancient imagination? Perhaps. Yet ancient peoples, in their art, typically depicted what they observed directly, what they saw with their own eyes. Artistic hyperbole, the exaggeration of reality, emerged much later in human expression. This suggests a terrifying possibility. The Vinca people might have been sculpting their gods, their teachers, their visitors, not from the realm of myth, but from direct, unsettling observation. And it is this very interaction, this unseen influence, that could explain the impossible, accelerated development of this ancient society. What if these giants, these extraterrestrial beings, did not merely teach the Vinca people the rudiments of civilization, but imparted advanced technologies, knowledge far beyond the grasp of their era? The Vinca culture, after all, is not an isolated incident of inexplicable prehistoric advancement. In the year 1929, near the city of Chengdu, in the heart of China, a simple peasant, toiling in his fields, digging a ditch, struck something hard beneath the earth. He unearthed an ancient cache of jade artifacts, objects of unimaginable beauty and perplexing origin, a discovery that would rip open another wound in the fabric of accepted history. For 50 long years, the desolate plateau yielded nothing. A dedicated team of archaeologists, armed with their meticulous methods and unwavering resolve, had scoured every inch of the ancient terrain. They dug, they sifted, they measured, their hopes slowly eroding with each passing season. Decades bled into one another, marked only by the relentless sun and the biting wind, leaving behind a profound silence, a void where history should have been. No glimmer of a forgotten civilization, no whisper of a lost people, just dust and the crushing weight of unfulfilled expectation. Then, in 1986, the Earth decided to speak again. Not to the esteemed academics, not to the patient scholars, but to the calloused hands of ordinary workers. They were not searching for history. They were simply digging, clearing the ground for a new project, when their shovel struck something hard, some their trove, an explosion of ancient wonders that demanded a new, urgent analysis. This was more than just a find. It was a revelation that shattered the established narrative. The artifacts, countless and perplexing, belonged to a culture previously shrouded in myth, the Sanxingdui. This was not merely another ancient society. It was one of the most enigmatic chapters in the entire human story. Among the unearthed treasures, dozens of colossal bronze heads stood out, their presence both magnificent and deeply unsettling. Their faces were stark, almost perfectly square, framed by exaggerated, almost alien features. Eyes wide and staring, noses prominent, mouths a thin, enigmatic line. They were not human, not and seemed to pierce through time itself. It is a chilling coincidence, then, that ancient Chinese lore holds a tale eerily similar to narratives found in other forgotten texts, whispers of a history almost too strange to comprehend. Consider the legend of Fuxi, one of the primordial ancestors of China. The stories speak of a time when he ascended a sacred mountain, a solitary figure seeking wisdom in the vastness, and from the heavens, from the very sky itself, through spoken words, but through what modern minds might call telepathy, a direct transfer of knowledge from one consciousness to another. The mysterious giant imparted profound wisdom, teaching Fuxi how to master the rivers for fishing, how to cultivate the earth for sustenance, how to shape raw materials into intricate works of art. These were not simple lessons. They were the foundations of civilization itself. It appears, with an unnerving clarity, that this very knowledge, this ancient gift, was later harnessed by the Sanxingdui culture and perhaps countless other highly advanced societies that dotted the ancient world. But this only deepens the mystery. Why did an entire cohort of highly qualified scientists, equipped with every tool and theory, search for half a century and find nothing, only for a group of laborers to stumble upon these earth-shattering discoveries in a matter of days? What forces were at play, obscuring the truth for so long? And what of the persistent rumors that American authorities continue to conceal documents pertaining to the legend of Gilgamesh, another powerful beings, perhaps from another star, offers an explanation for many of history's most stubborn inconsistencies? Their capabilities would easily account for the monumental architecture of Norte Chico, the countless pyramids scattered across Meroe, the intricate drums of the Dong-Sun culture, or the bizarre, almost otherworldly heads of the Nok civilization. Their very presence could have inspired the master artisans of the Vincha and Sanqingdui, pushing human creativity to unimaginable heights, imbuing their creations with a sense of the sublime and the terrifying. So, why is this information still hidden, buried beneath layers of academic skepticism and official silence? We are told to dismiss these possibilities, to believe in the mundane. In Ireland, for centuries, people whispered tales of giants crafting the awe-inspiring Giant's Causeway, a magnificent stone structure along the coast. Scientists, in recent times, offered a definitive, natural explanation. It was merely the result of millions of years of geological erosion. A neat, tidy answer. But what if the erosion was simply a convenient truth, a plausible narrative designed to distract from the greater, more unsettling questions that still linger in the shadows of our past? What if the secrets we seek are not merely lost to time, but deliberately hidden from us by forces we cannot even begin to comprehend?